this is going to be great.
Welcome to the White House Pod with David A.R. White.
When you think about an introduction for someone, you think about all the things that you could say, and it's kind of like a funeral, maybe, when you think about that, things that you wish that you could say, and then you get up there and you give your speech about the person who died, however sad this is, and you start thinking, wow, why didn't I say that, or why didn't I say that, or that? This guy, I'm having the same feelings, and I haven't even introduced him yet. He is a legend. He grew up in Hollywood. He had one of the most famous agents of all times who put together shows like The A-Team, Riptide, Remington Steele, like Jake and the Fat Man, all these iconic 80s shows. And then he graduated, became an agent himself. At one point, I picked up a phone and he called me, pitching me a client for a movie that we were doing. And then I kind of just hit it off with him. And from there, he actually gave up agenting because he had a desire and a dream to go into producing. He went into producing, produced all these films, directed these films, and I have had the pleasure to the last 3 out of 4 films that I did, he directed. And but more importantly, my good friend, my pal, we've been all over the world together, Matt Shapira. I love you. Please welcome Matt Shapira.
Thanks for letting me join you here.
I'm just hoping that applause was the right level for you.
Yeah, I heard it. It was great. Great. Yeah, no, thank you for the eulogy speech.
I will miss him dearly. Oh, you're still here.
I actually think about that all the time when I think about relationships. What would they say if I wasn't here in terms of if,
Well, it'll be something like that.
So now I know what yours was.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'll try to tighten it up and, make it more meaningful and try to put some tears in between.
Yeah, thank you.
Well.
I'll work on mine. I haven't practiced mine for you, so it wasn't on my list, but yeah. But the feeling is mutual.
I have it right here. There you go.
Yeah,
just say any of the
thanks for letting me
3 pages. And
hold on. Spelled my name wrong. It's with an A, not an O.
Yeah, for years I called you Matt Shapiro.
Yeah.
Is it hard growing up in Hollywood, right? That's a Jewish name.
This is a great segue. So I am not Robert Shapiro's son.
Oh, okay.
I am David Shapira's son. So yes, it starts off with, oh, you're Shapiro. Oh, no, Shapira. Oh, so Robert, no. David. David Shapira and Associates is the company that I worked with.
That's right.
My dad. Yeah, and that's where we met.
Yeah.
He says, hello.
Yeah.
And he's available.
I love your dad.
He said, call his agent.
He'll
do the show.
I would actually love to have your dad on the show at some point in time.
Yeah.
If you'd ever do it.
I wonder if he would actually tell any of the stories he has.
That's amazing.
Can you imagine?
Okay, so growing up in Hollywood, you must have so many stories. But tell me one story about you. At one point in time, you said stars would come over for dinner, or they'd call in the middle of dinner. Just tell me something about some famous person that our audience knows I love the George Papard story, but go ahead.
That's a great question.
He repped Sybil Shepherd at one point. We had Sybil in a movie, and she was
cool. A major part of my childhood. So was her daughter. We used to go to her house for like barbecues on the weekend when they were doing moonlighting. Yeah. My dad had great clients over the years, and
would Bruce go to those moonlighting?
I don't think I saw him there. And
because they had a feud going on.
I don't think. I can't speak to it, but I don't think that they were friendly.
They were going to each other's barbecues.
I don't know. All I know is he wasn't. If he was there, I would have been a huge fan. I've been like, sign this for me, would you?
The funny thing is that we had Burt Ward on the show, and the original Robin from Batman and Robin. He was saying how close he was though to the Batman guy.
Isn't that amazing?
Who was the original Batman?
Oh gosh,
I know. Yeah,
off the top of my head.
Adam West.
Adam West. Look at you.
Yeah, well, I was a big Batman fan.
Yeah. I knew. Of course, I knew that.
Point is that the two of them would hang out all the time. That they were like best buds for 30, 40 years.
I mean, I remember always like a story. For example, is I think it was Larry Manetti, who was on Hawaii Five-0, and he was very good friends with Tom Selleck. They were best friends.
Yeah.
And
I love that show.
I used to go to Hawaii. Yeah.
Can we cue that song?
Yeah.
It's like such a great song.
But they were best friends. I mean, Larry Wilcox and what's the guy you worked with on Chips?
Yeah. Eric Estrada.
That's right. They were very close.
We've had both of those guys in our movies before.
Yeah, I like Larry.
They're fun.
Larry
both of them.
is a huge. I think he's my sister Brenda's godfather. It's been a while, but he was a big part of my life too. One of the stories that I love that I tell you, I told you in the past, is my dad would come home from work and my mom would sit at the dinner table and we'd all be at the dinner table getting ready to eat, and my dad would get a call from George Papard, and I
love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah, he'd have an analog phone on the wall. He'd click on the speaker and my dad would say, "Okay, George, tell him." George would say, "Okay, David, I love it when a plan comes together." And we all would laugh, scream, and just know that we were so lucky and fortunate that this TV superstar gave us our own personal concert.
And it was like in the middle of the show, right?
It was during the show, yeah.
Wow.
So at that time, though, as a kid, my dad represented
one of the biggest shows in the world at the time.
every one of those actors with the exception of Mr. T. So it was neat.
And Young, I forget the manager's name, who I met.
Peter
has been repping Mr. T forever.
Yeah, he has been like a long time.
Like a long time.
Yeah. So I met Mr. T only once at the Battle of the Network Stars, which not many people know about.
Yeah, but he was good on that. I saw that episode. Great. The Battle of the Network Stars.
So back in Malibu and Pepperdine, this is a long time ago. As a kid, they would do the Olympics for the athletes or for the actors. And it was like a Battle of the Network Stars, and it was so cool. At that time, I was a huge A-Team fan. Who wasn't? I remember meeting Mr. T, and I was like, "Are those heavy?"
All his chains.
Do you have to work out a lot for that?
Just to hold him. I mean, he had a very strong neck.
I always remember that his biggest weakness was flying, so they'd always have to every show he'd have to suddenly be knocked out. Yeah,
they even did that in the movie. They brought it back in the movie that they did.
I didn't see that. The Bradley Cooper one?
Yeah.
It
wasn't a terrible movie. It wasn't a great movie, but it wasn't like...
How do you...
The problem is taking that, you know... I tried to actually have the A-Team watched by my kids, and they didn't get past 6 minutes into the episode.
Yeah, it's like Knight Rider. It's like, what a great show. But they don't really... They don't pass the eye test today. They kind of okay, got it.
Why, Dad? They shoot all those bullets and nothing ever hits anyone. Ever.
It's TV.
Because they couldn't hit people back then, maybe.
I remember one of the cooler things I did, speaking of which, is I remember being invited by my dad's friend, a showrunner, who was producing the Addams Family. And I was 11. And we got dressed up for Halloween, and it was a Halloween party. And I met, what's the boy?
Wednesday?
No, the boy. It was the boy. He was at my age. And so he and I ended up becoming best friends that night and going all throughout the Addams Family house. And I remember thinking, how do you ever tell anyone that story and actually because it was such a huge show, Silver Spoons or Growing Pains, that was in that community of shows, and to be able to run around with the star of the, I was like, oh my gosh, it's cool. So that was neat.
Yeah, you have so many of those. When I have gone out with you in Hollywood, it seems like you guys, you're just like royalty. You know everybody there. You know all kinds of people.
My father, David, and my mother, Nancy, have been married a long time, and my dad met my mom when he was 17, and he basically proposed to her upon meeting her. And he lied about his age by a year because she was older, and he ended up working at Ashley Famous, and this is a neat anecdote, but he was a shoe shine boy at the Sebring, the salon, which is famous for Charlie Manson stuff. But above that floor was the Ashley Famous agency, and I think it was Rod Sterling is the host of... Wasn't Rod Sterling the host of Twilight Zone?
Yeah.
So Rod was getting his shoe shined by my dad, a 17-year-old, who said, you would make a great agent.
Wow.
So my dad said, I would love to be an agent. He didn't even know what that meant, but he was he came in from Canada. He was trying to figure out his way, and he got a job working at the agency, and he was young. And my point, though, of all that is my mom and my dad always had a belief that family was first, and they always believed integrity. So his history and the legacy that I've stepped into, just being his last name and the namesake, he basically just wanted to make sure that I carried, his character. And the reason why he is such a respected, revered man, and the relationships I was able to enjoy as a kid and all the way through my professional life, is because he never wronged anyone. He's been so kind and giving, professional and strong and hard, but for the benefit of the community around him. And I've met some amazing people. And it's really easy to walk into a room and say, I'm David's son.
That's really cool. Well, yeah, Matt is always busy at a family function, unfortunately, for us who don't have a lot of family around. But then we get invited.
We're your family.
We get invited.
Actually, my dad said last night at dinner, he's like, I really wanted to invite David. And I said, well, he probably would have come if he didn't have his 3 kids.
That's true. So I'm a little bit busy and sometimes. Hey, so fast forward, what is the thing that makes you want to get out of agenting? That's what I want to know, because you were a really good agent. You stepped right into it. You were making deals. You were repping a lot of celebrities, and then you were pitching great people to me. That's a funny story, by the way. But we'll sidestep that one for later. Okay, so
the short answer of that is I really enjoyed the transactional education that my dad taught me, the packaging side, the financing side, the sales side. And I kind of felt like I hit a ceiling in terms of the knowledge there. And I really wanted to get into maybe creating the product versus just selling the product. I wanted to have more of an investment emotionally in what was being created with the people that I was already working with or talking to, like you. And so I knew that the opportunity there at the agency would be mostly to represent the interests of people who are either actors or directors or producers or writers. So I started broadening my reach, and one of those we experienced together, which was to figure out distribution. And I realized I wanted to be on set. I wanted to be around people creatively. I wanted to, my spirit started to blossom and soar when I was around like-minded creative people, which I would attribute to my mom, who, when I was very young, raised me around art and art history. And she herself is an amazing artist. So our time together, we would paint. That was our experience a lot of our time. And so as a result of that, I kind of felt like there was some part of me that was missing, that from 9 to 7 at night, from 9 a.m. to 7 at night, that I'd be just working. And the work was related to numbers and getting numbers.
Now, were you a painter before? I failed to mention, now the good news about when you're doing, what do they call when you're at a funeral?
A eulogy.
Eulogy. When you're doing a eulogy, is that the person's already gone, and then you don't get another shot at the eulogy. But fortunately for us, you're still here. So, and I did miss the fact that you're an unbelievable artist and a painter. And so,
thank you.
How did you? So, because I think this is what you were segueing to. Were you painting all the way through? By the way, Matt just gave my daughters these incredible giraffes the other day. I'll show you a picture of my cat. Because Everson loves giraffes, and so you just were like, "Whoop! Here you go."
Well, the story is that you had an event. You and JP over at Joffrey's had an event for a friend who had an awful accident, and we donated things. One of the things I donated was a painting, and I think you bought the painting for your house for his
massive
medical
elephant. Actually, yeah.
So it's been with you a long time,
but I actually didn't know about your art at that point. I just saw it, and I was like, "Wow!" I don't even think I knew that was yours.
Yeah, probably not.
I mean, this is 7 years ago.
Yeah,
maybe?
No, a little longer, maybe like 10.
Yeah.
But the cute conversation is that you were saying one of your I think it was it Evie?
Yeah.
She was saying she really liked you. She always looks at the elephant, and I said, well, what do you like elephants? She goes, actually, I like your voice.
Giraffes.
She's like, I like giraffes, and I was like, well, it sounds like you need a giraffe.
Yeah.
So it was really cute when she saw that giraffe.
Well, the funny thing, we're gonna come back to this, but because we're skipping, we'll come back.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, when we were doing Finding Love in Quarantine, I had just moved in. I was in the middle of a divorce. Actually, I was out of a divorce, and I just moved into a house for the first time by myself. And my kids, obviously, we share custody and that kind of thing. But the weird thing is that my house had nothing on the walls.
Yeah.
And so here we are in the middle of a pandemic. Actually, not even the middle, the start of a pandemic. Everything's shut down. You can't go to a store to get stuff. And we're shooting a movie.
So David, I want to go back. I want to get to that, but I want to sort of set that up.
Yeah.
I've known David. I guess it's been like 20 more or less 20 years.
A while.
And so I pitched him a client that was
2003.
Yeah.
This is 2003, I think.
And
I was doing 6.
We hit it off, right?
Yep.
I really admired. I make calls all day. You're an agent, right? You got to sell. You got to sell. You got to sell. And at the end of the day, sometimes in that you have to have some humanity and you have to have relationships. And you try to do your best in that because that's the difficulty of business. And then you sometimes connect with people. With you, an immediate connection. And I can tell because that's how you are with everybody. People really gravitate to you. And that's why you're a movie star. That's why you own a company that is so successful. That is why you're a voice and have a calling. And I picked up on that immediately and I felt that. And I was inspired by you.
Is this my eulogy?
No, but that's my setup. It might be part of the opening of your eulogy, though.
It's not bad, actually.
Yeah.
Let's use this.
So,
write that down.
We build a friendship that has spanned a long time, and it's because of the admiration I have for you as a father, as a husband, to your ex, not to me, just to be clear, to all of the people we're friends with, the events you've thrown. You've always been gracious and giving. Now, it's with that is one thing in particular that puts you at the top of my favorite group. It's that you are a pioneer. And when there is something that needs to happen, you are the first person to put the hard hat on and say, let's pivot and figure it out. I mean, even this podcast, which is a new thing for you, which is so exciting and I'm honored to be a part of.
Yeah. Have you. Thank you.
So here I am, the pandemic starts. It's literally 4 days into the pandemic and we're sitting at home watching the news, trying to figure out if we're going to get groceries or toilet paper. We're praying it comes, things like that. And you say, our company needs content. We need to create content. And I was like, well, let's do a horror movie. You're like, I love it. We're going to do a family faith film. And I said, well,
horror movie on PureFlix. That'll be great.
But it was amazing how quickly it was like we just were spitballing. And next thing we know, within a matter of 10 minutes, we call your buddy, who
Tommy
is now
Blaze.
my very good friend too, Tommy Blaze. And we start coming up with Finding Love in Quarantine. And literally everyone's trying to figure out if they're going to be able to fill their gas tank. And we're figuring out which day is going to be the first day of our shooting with, all the bells and whistles we can create. And that leads us to, here you are in this house that you just moved into. You've got your kids, nothing on the walls. You have essentially the very limited furniture that you have. A couple of plants that we repurpose in scenes that no one will know unless you really look. And yeah. So
we're going to show you a picture of Finding Love in Quarantine right now, the house. You need to see it.
Such a cute movie, and but
those walls have a lot of elephants and giraffes.
We needed decorations, and I happen to have a handful of art, and so we found a storyline that works. And you became the most.
Ocean was a painter, I think, too.
The idea was in coping with her. Yes. You watch the movie; it's worth the mess. The message is great, and you'll enjoy it. But yes, we made that movie. We did in the middle of the earliest stage. We're probably number one on the production schedule for anyone who made a movie during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finding Love in Quarantine. What a sweet, sweet movie. And that was a fun movie. That was the first movie that you directed with me, right?
Yeah.
I think so, right? So,
yeah, it was.
So, all right. So I sidestepped this question. I didn't mean to because we got caught on the art in Finding Love in Quarantine. But going back, you're an agent. Are you painting, are you getting up at 6 a.m. to paint in the morning, or are you painting at night, or are you painting at that point? Because you merged from being an agent to an artist, I think, right?
Yeah.
Before you went into production and started directing, you were doing painting, weren't you first?
Yeah.
Before you did your first movie?
That's so the short answer of that is I went to college in New Orleans, Tulane, and I studied political science and art history. And art history, like any subject matter, has a lot of layers to it, and it depends on where you're from. I had an obsession with, or a deep connection with, the post-impressionist artists, like the Van Goghs of the world, the Degas of the world. And so I would travel a lot through Europe in that sort of Hemingway mindset, which is to travel as an expat, living the life of having, cheeses in France, a pint in London.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah, just, the idea, though, is I really wanted to connect to the deeper meaning of why an artist would create, because I was really passionate about art and the history. And so I learned, and I got sort of my experience through copying the masters, which ultimately is the best way to become a good artist in any form, whether an actor or a writer. You look at those who inspired you and you try to learn what they've done, and you create your own brushstroke. My voice in that came over my late 20s into my 30s when I started focusing on conservation and elephant conservation. So I went from painting masters of the post-impressionists to suddenly creating the same brushstroke and color palette with elephants.
Oh.
And that's sort of how it sort of shifted quickly, because what's amazing is that what you learn really quickly is a lot of people like elephants. I mean, I love elephants, but a lot of people like elephants.
Really like elephants. Like, what do you call yourself now besides the elephant whisperer of art? Like, what is your title now?
Well, I think
around the world, what do they know you as?
Yeah, so you create a brand, and the brand is supposed to be the sort of the mission behind it, right? Mm-hmm. So I found myself being ultimately a roaming elephant. And by that, it's usually the family of elephants is usually matriarchal, female, and have their children and teenagers, and they are female driven. The males, tend to be a bit of a loner, and they travel, and then when they're ready to find their mate for the year or that season, they have their season. But mostly, males roam. So as someone who's traveled the world and roamed, I felt like a roaming elephant. Mm. And so the natural name of that became the brand, the production company later, but essentially the art brand. And yeah, it spanned all over the globe. So I've been fortunate to do murals in Zambia and India and Thailand and Nepal and as random as Jamaica and some places we've done together.
And the White House in Westlake Village.
That's right. So there is a lot of depth and layers on those pieces. And I think that the message behind them is essentially the same thing we share. I mean, ultimately at the highest level, we want to give and show the light. We want to give love. We want people to have compassion, have family, and focus on their best version of themselves. And I think that's what elephants represent. They're kind.
Now, how do you segue then? So you're still obviously doing art. You do it so well. How do you segue from that into movies? Like, where did you say, hey, I want to start directing? By the way, if you've never seen the films that we've done, the Finding Love in Quarantine, Love on the Rock, Nothing's Impossible, all of them have the roaming elephant at the beginning of them, which is Matt's company.
Yeah. And I think actually all of them have
elephants
a painting, one painting in, the first one. Yeah, David's been very gracious. It's sort of my what do you call that? Easter egg? No, the egg.
What's it called? Where's Waldo?
Yeah, it's like there's always a painting somewhere that you maybe. The one in Love on the Rock was with John Lovitz in the background. No, I shouldn't say. Go look.
Yeah.
Go look. Where's the Nothing's Impossible one? I don't even
know where it is. Look at that. I have to look at that.
It's currently in Tennessee.
I heard that's a good movie.
Yeah.
Somebody should see that movie.
It's a great movie, and all three of them are so different in their if they're children, they represent such different personalities.
Yeah.
Right? And they're so neat and cute and fun and inspiring.
It's a good way to look at them.
I think so. So that's the question is what inspired I'll call that a segue to you. I feel like it's not something that you wake up and you figure out. It's something that you've always known about yourself. You have to, and this is probably the best, maybe, advice to any audience member out there. You have to face your fear and recognize if you have a calling or if you have a voice, that you might not be great when you start, but you can get better with the right people around you.
Yeah,
and
that's so true.
You champion, that effort, and you recognize with humility that, you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. And as you learn to tell stories, you realize the stories you want to tell will eventually lead to your legacy. And so for me, and that's one of the things about the last 3 movies we've done, I'm honored that we get to make those movies. Because those movies, when I do have someone making an actual speech about my life, I'll be honored that those are the kind of movies that are left behind. So I felt like I had a voice. I feel like my art is a beautiful version of that, and the films are a moving picture version of that.
It's interesting how. All right, wait. But you didn't answer the question about the. How do you go from artist to saying I want to direct? Did you just always know that growing up? When George Papard called your phone, were you always thinking, going, George, if you just did it a little bit more this way,
maybe the camera should be here and push in. He's like, what? When you're on set, it becomes second nature, and I was fortunate to be on set a lot. And I feel like...
Did you know you wanted to be a director, though? Okay, you did.
Well, I think that when I was very young...
You didn't say?
I had a big... the family had a camcorder, and it was the VHSs. And before that was like the betas, right? It was like you had to click in some...
Yeah, they're massive.
And I was the kid who always would film the family during the holidays or whatever, and then I would film and I'd do the interviews. And I think ultimately...
Did you ever transfer that, by the way? transfer it off of the
yeah.
and put it on a whatever.
Yeah, my dad had a disc,
floppy, or
I think a DVD.
Did you now go to the DVD?
Floppy was the earlier.
But did you now you got to transfer it from the DVD to your computer?
Yeah, no, to just a form, like a QuickTime file.
It's a tough thing to keep up with all that stuff.
It's hard, especially when they're like.
There's so many of them. It's like
yeah.
I used to rent, on a side note to your story. Don't forget where you are.
Okay.
This is a good it's a good test for Matt whether he has ADD or not. Okay, so I used to have to check out my camera because I didn't have one.
You did get one?
Yeah, I had to get one from the AV department at
cool.
the school. And Dick Unruh was my teacher, my AV teacher, and I loved their family, and I still love their family. Would help me have it for 2 days, and then I would go out and make these ridiculous videos and movies and direct. I'd be running in the snow doing my Rocky thing with shorts on. And
That's cool.
Just the stupidest things anybody you could do. I'd be like, here you go. This will be great.
That should be seen. You should show this to people.
Well, fortunately, we did not transfer those.
Oh, yeah. Well.
All right. So go back. So, okay.
I just think I've always,
You had the eye, though, early on. Did you know?
I did. Yeah, 100%. When I was, so I'm going to reference.
You did grow up in the industry, though. So
remember
was a
Blockbuster?
Yeah.
When I was like 17 or 18.
There's still one Blockbuster, by the way.
Yeah. I don't know. Is it open?
It's on like Netflix or something. They've still kept it open. There's
cool.
There's a whole documentary. It's quite fascinating.
I used to spend a lot of time researching the back sleeve of the foreign film and the international films and the action films, and I used to look at all the people that were directing it, producing it. I really wanted to know who they were because I wanted to understand the formula of how they got there. And so my sort of nature was to sort of reverse engineer it, to say, okay, so if these are the people, where did they start? So I remember my first dream was to like take Kubrick and Christopher Nolan and Polanski's first movies and sort of figure out how they did it. Who was their support team and how did they get away with it and what was the budget and what was the storyline and what's the smartest approach. And I think filmmaking is very different than painting. And I think part of the journey of filmmaking and part of wanting to be a filmmaker, which is a lesson, is it's a marathon. Mm-hmm. You create an idea and you don't just go and do it. You have a prep, you have a production, and you have a post. And there are tens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of people that help you. And as you learn the process of directing, albeit producing, and you do all these things. So you know it better. You run a studio. So you not only do it, but you have 12 at a time, 15 at a time going. So how your brain is even functioning, being a dad, and poof. But I really enjoy the sort of the Rubik's Cube of it all. Mm-hmm. Not just the storytelling. I really enjoy sitting on set and knowing the lens and knowing the camera, knowing the lighting, working with the actor, but also giving the playground to the actor so that I'm not trying to step on their toes. And I enjoy the process of going from idea, prepping it, getting everything organized, being like on the track of the train station and going and knowing you're going to get to your destination in such a way that you're like, everyone's like, wow, how did you do that? It's like, well, everybody did it. Yeah. And we all did it because we had an idea and we're all very gifted at it because we work hard to be gifted at it and we know what our goals are. So we hit it.
It's interesting too, though, in production. I don't think very many people think about this. Is that everybody has a different, a specialty. So there's like the grip department who's lighting it. There's the sound department, the art department.
So many departments.
Right, wardrobe. There's like the makeup. It's like all the different heads of the departments too have to all cohesively come together. It's not obviously, because there's a lot of chaos.
It's controlled
production.
Chaos, right? I mean, that's the intent. But we've been on set, and even in our chaos. I mean, we went to, so for one movie we did, The Love on the Rock I mentioned with John Lovitz, we shot that in Malta. Mm-hmm. I mean, first off, if anyone knows where Malta is, because I kind of knew until I didn't really know until I really knew. Yeah. It's north of Africa and it's south of Italy, somewhere just southeast of Sicily.
An island that they also shot the Jurassic Worlds on. And we came in November of 2020. Actually.
2020?
November 2020. Yeah. No, for sure it was 2020.
Yeah.
But it was, because I remember I was in Halloween. I was celebrating Halloween for whatever reason.
Oh yeah.
In Miami.
That's right.
Because with Vincent, we went there, and I was just shocked at how everything was just wide open in 2020 in Florida, in Miami. But then we flew to.
Well, I flew to Malta first. I was there with Matthew Marsden, who was in the movie, and has been a longtime friend and collaborator, and then Eitan, who has DP'd the 3 movies we've done together. And we were there, and we were...
But Jurassic World was on its way out because they had just finished.
Yeah, our crew, which was, you don't know what you're getting until you're getting there, especially
until you get there.
In a country like that with a
pandemic, everything's shut down.
Yeah, you're learning on the fly. But we had every crew has had we've had a great experience with every crew.
Yeah, we've been really
The Maltese crew were, amazing, unbelievable. And of course, that's why Jurassic World was, we were fortunate to get them. Also, let's not forget they did parts of Black Hawk Down there. All of our team was coming off of multiple big projects.
I think they did Passion of the Christ there. I
think they did some pieces.
Malta, what we found out in the research part, had this rich biblical history, and that was the most fascinating part, given the fact of what Love in the Rock, and the Rock was, I think it represents Peter, and they call Malta the Rock. So it all kind of symbiotically went together to make what we were aiming to make anyway. We were going to go to Barbados originally.
Well.
It would not have been the same.
Untitled Action Barbados movie was the name of the movie when I landed in Malta.
Yeah, and then it was called Romancing the Cure, which was, instead of romancing the stone, it was that as a title. My point is that it is amazing how it all comes together. I had one other segue I wanted to ask. Back to art.
Yeah.
Does anybody ever paint with groups? Do you ever how a film is all the different people to come together to make a movie? Are there ever artists who I'm gonna do this one with 3 other people?
Throughout history, you look at the major architectural elements, right? Like as an artist, architecture is a piece of art, so that takes tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
So when it comes to specific types of creations, if you're looking at a painting, in this case specifically, if you're looking at a mural, a lot of muralists will work with multiple people to create this massive piece that you'll see in Vegas on the massive wall, or down in South Florida, so there is a lot of collaborations. I think when you're for me at least, when I work with an artist, I've done really cool interior of jackets where I'll do a silk screen of one of my pieces.
How cool is that? Yeah.
Right. So they'll design the jacket, they'll do the stitching and the embroidering, and I'll just have my art as the sort of interior. Like if you see a Tom Ford jacket, you'll see the red inside of it. Instead of a red, it'll be a really cool silk inlay of my elephants.
Yeah.
So, it just depends, right? I think art is a journey amongst people. And if you create a small piece for yourself, that's one thing. If you want to do it yourself, it's one thing. But if you're an artist collaborator, and I'm sure everyone in this room is, then you definitely have other people in your community of art.
That's cool. I didn't know that. I don't know much about art. I never... I'm not a great drawer, painter, that kind of thing. It's interesting. My kids are, though. They're not Matt Shapira, but...
They're young. I didn't become an artist until I was in my 30s.
Okay, so we do some movies together, right? Looking back, give me something. What sticks out? What are some of the memories? Or give me one. What's one memory, though, that is... Doesn't have to be the top one. It just needs to be in the top 10.
Would you have one?
No, this is on you.
You're memories.
The guest.
I
do have some memories of those 3 movies.
I first off, each one of the things that is, I think, a blessing, and I think it's so important to say, is when you're making movies, it's a gift. Someone gave me advice once. As hard as it gets, on your worst day, remember you're doing what you love. So, number one, if I'm directing a movie, I left a career that was something I should have taken over for my dad's agency. So that's a big sacrifice. So to do that means I really want to do something I really need to do that feels right for me. To get to a point where not only do I move from, sweeping floors and being a set photographer and learning how to edit through new media content, to one day being on a project that someone puts money in a bank and says, you can direct that. And then we like what you do. That's a huge moment for yourself. So to then be in that moment and to be present with that, and then to look around and see that you're with your friends, the people that you want to spend your day with. Not always the case.
Yeah.
For me, my favorite memories are the moments where we're on set and we're all stressed out, but we look at each other and we go, where else would we want to be? We're with each other making art that is eventually going to be seen by many, many people.
And it's scary, though. That's the thing, too. Obviously, in every facet of life and whatever you're doing, it's still the unknown, though. A lot of times in production, Like, you know, I mean, we had so much, just even in the last 3 movies. Like, I look back on Nothing's Impossible. The unknown element was whether we were going to get funded, whether it was going to go forward. Here I am trying to be a basketball player. You know, the running, the suicides, as at my age is a lot harder than my son who does it at 16. You know, that was for me the really, really scary part of that. The Malta thing. Okay, so here, we're going to go backwards really quick, and then we're going to end this. So Nothing's Impossible, that was my hardest. What was your hardest thing on Nothing's Impossible? What was the scariest? It was the scariest.
You know, there's always a moment where you're exhausted, and the fatigue is starting to play tricks on your mind. Mm-hmm. And you have to like I was talking to my sister about, like, someone once said to me.
Those are long hours. That's the thing, too. There's sometimes
the set environment, the director's responsibility is to make sure that people feel inspired. Mm-hmm. That there's a good energy. And it's also the number one actor's responsibility. And sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. But they also do their job. So the director's job is to direct everything, not just what's ultimately being captured. And I think when we were doing those long nights where you were doing the basketball and it was choreographed, we had a choreographer who was great, Eric. Mm-hmm. And you had
he's a shooting coach.
You have 25 basketball players, and you have 50 extras, and you have a crew of 30. And it's 4 a.m. and you have no more coffee, or your craft service table looks like it's been picked at like by vultures. And you basically don't even know which day it is. And fortunately, your AD and your DOP are sitting there going, Matt, come over here. We need the coverage of this. You're like, what's coverage mean now? I don't even know. But then there's the part where it's like you have to run, right? And you have to run, and you have to trust my eye. You're giving me all that respect. And so I have to go, okay, do I just say, David, do it again, do it this way? Or do I say, David, just go to the monitor? And so you could look at it and understand what we see. So we have an unspoken respect and understanding of how to not say a word, but say exactly what we need to each other. Those are the kind of moments that I say are like the favorite moments for me. Right? Whether it's with the DP, whether it's with the actor, whether it's with the makeup artist, those little moments, I feel like I know you for a lifetime in this 1 second. And I love that.
Yeah, that is really cool. Okay, Love on the Rock. Last one we're going to do. And we got to close up. Love on the Rock, scariest moment in Love on the Rock. Do you want to go first? You want me to?
No, yeah, you go first.
You sure?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Love on the Rock. There was a bunch of them because of you're in the pandemic. It's 2020. One of the scariest moments was at the very beginning. And I think this is always the scarier part, is sometimes you don't know when you're going to, whether you're going to be shut down or not. Mm. And because the pandemic had so much surrounding it of being shut down with all the, the vaccines, the tests. If you didn't have the vaccine, you were being tested all the time. It's like, and we got shut down. We did a makeup test, and the 4 people that were doing makeup on me is Stephen Bauer, Jeff Fahey, Lorianne Gillerin, got COVID and tested positive. And so all of a sudden now we're shut down, and they're like, and they had touched all of our faces the day before and then went positive. And then, and then we were on hold for however long. That was the scariest thing, because you're like, you only have so much money, and the money's ticking away as you got all these people in hotels, and you paid for all your stars, and everybody's just sitting there, and you just want to go. It's like that. It's like that gun that goes off before the race. I think that's the most nervous part.
That was definitely that framed our entire experience. That constant concern. I think honestly, I had maybe one small flare up, and that was me, Eitan, and Matt getting through Amsterdam to Malta. We got held up in customs.
Oh yeah,
because they didn't want us to travel through, and they were concerned about us doing that. That was scary, but ultimately, when we got to Malta, and I know this sounds maybe easier in hindsight, I didn't have an ounce of fear.
Once we started shooting,
it was seamless. We knew what we wanted to do. We had our family with us, which is our creative family, and we all know that we all are the type of people that can figure it out right there and then, and we did.
That's awesome. All right, well, Matt, it's an honor to have you. All right, so you got one plug here if you want to plug something that you've been doing, or where can people go to get your art? That's important.
Well, I mean, Roaming Elephant is my art name, and
on Instagram, Facebook, all those places.
Yeah, at Roaming Elephant. But I think that for me, I'm a big believer that the universe introduces people when they're meant to, and if they see my art and they want it, great. I've sold a lot, almost 10,000 pieces, all over the globe. But I will say one thing. Some of them
in the White House over here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited for your endeavor into this. I think it's going to be super cool, and so many people are going to enjoy it. They're going to get to know you and all the people you worked with and all the experiences underneath the surface that otherwise they wouldn't have known. So for me, this is a really cool experience to be able to share some of those little moments. Yeah.
Well, Matt Shapira, I love you, brother. I'm looking forward to many, many, many more productions that we get to do together. And hey, guys, thanks for watching this. If you want to see more, please tell your friends. Catch us on YouTube, on Spotify, on iTunes, on iHeart. We're everywhere. So please keep us everywhere. Appreciate you. God bless you, and make today great.